Okay, all rise and shout. It's time for a top button edition of What's Trending.
Rise and shout for beating the Big 12.
Big 12, are you ready for BYU? The big countdown to the Big 12 starts right now.
This is one of the greatest days of my life as a BYU fan.
Oh, July 1st was awesome, and here we are, August 24th, that much closer to the season. What's Trending, presented by Feastbox, donating 10% of every order to Full of Hope, a charitable organization that feeds hungry families. The Big 12 era is almost here, Shep. 9 conference games on tap for the Cougars. So is it 4+ wins in Big 12 games? There are 9, remember.
Yes.
Or bust for BYU football this year?
First of all, I cannot go to the bust side of this equation. I can't get there, even if things don't turn out like we all not just hope it will, but expect it to. So I think all of us expect BYU to finish higher than where they are currently being pegged at 11th
like in the bottom
conference.
4.
Or in some cases, which we talked about, dead last. That's absolutely ridiculous. So, but I can't, even if things don't go as well as we hope or expect, I just can't put the term bust on anything that happens this year.
Anything?
I just can't.
If BYU goes 2-10, it was not.
It was
not that.
First of all, I just don't see that scenario playing out at all. I'm wiping it away.
Agreed, but you're saying.
But let's say they only win 3, okay? Which again,
they go 5-7, 3-6 in the league.
Yes, I just. With the learning curve, there is going to be a learning curve going into the Big 12. It's going to happen, and that's fine. Now, I think BYU will be better, but if let's say it does happen, I just can't put that label as the season is a bust when everything about this is trying to feel out a completely new surrounding and a new conference and a new way, quite frankly, of playing games than what BYU's done for over a decade. You had all of your tougher games in the beginning of the season, and then things eased out over the rest. It's the exact opposite now. Everything about this year is different from what BYU has done over the last 10+ years. So I just am not
about 100 years
willing to put the term bust if things don't necessarily go according to plan. Now, I fully expect BYU to win at least 4 conference games. So you're certainly talking at Kansas is winnable. Then you have the conference home opener against Cincinnati.
There's no way BYU loses that.
Exactly. Iowa State is coming here. We don't have any clue what Iowa State's even going to look like.
I'm not sure they know at this point.
Well, it's true.
They're shrouded in mystery regarding gambling allegations.
At West Virginia is absolutely a winnable game for BYU. And then I think BYU takes one of the 2 games against the schools from Oklahoma. So I don't see that scenario playing out. But no, I'm not willing to put the term bust, even if things don't go according to plan.
I am, because BYU's too talented. I think BYU is top 25 transfer portal class. BYU had some real talent in the last 3 years that is still on the staff or on the field. This group is too talented to not make a bowl game. If they do not, it is a bust to me. But I agree with you on the learning curve. There is also a learning curve for Big 12 teams that play against BYU. They have not faced the physicality and the discipline of BYU teams, the unique creative, dynamic nature that is BYU's offense the last couple of years. And if Kedon Slovis can recapture the NCAA-setting freshman record of 71.9% as a freshman, breaking Andrew Luck's record, like I'm not expecting that, but if that guy can be the guy that he's been in the past, can Aiden Robbins be the 1,000-yard rusher he was there? Can guys like Keelan Marion and Darius Lassiter recapture some of what they did in the last couple of years and show us? Can this defense be, better than last year? Yes is the answer. Significantly better, we hope. Yeah, then you've got to win at least 4 conference games, because if you don't win 4, you are not going to a bowl game. Because BYU should win the first 2, of course, at Arkansas. If you can upset the Razorbacks on the road, that's a really good win. That's the swing game of the
season, really it is, at Arkansas.
It's a big swing game. And it's one of the more predictable losses, should we say. If BYU pulls that off, that's a great upset. That's awesome. On the road against an SEC, we'll take it. We celebrated the Ole Miss win in 2011 like it was a huge win, because it was. Yes. Ole Miss was 2-10. Like, we didn't really care about that. Just go and win the game, right? Arkansas significantly better than Ole Miss was that year. But can BYU go 4-5 in the first year in the league? That is a taller task than we probably think. But BYU, to me, is schematically too good and too talented, especially on offense. Can the defense show up? Can BYU's offense do what it's been doing the last couple of years with some new personnel? I think the answer is yes. And I like the games that you outlined there. There are a few games that are going to come down to the wire that BYU's got to pull off. And every single Big 12 win is meaningful, by the way. There's not a single game where we go automatic. I'm saying Cincinnati is going to be a win, not just because of, hey, fellow Big 12 newcomer easing into this, not the same Cincinnati that went to the playoffs last couple of years, of course. Respect for that tremendous defense, especially. That defensive line is unbelievable, one of the best, if not the best, BYU will face. It's that BYU's Lavelle Edwards Stadium is going to be rocking out of control that night for the first Big 12 home game on a Friday night. I just don't see that scenario being one in which BYU loses. I just think BYU will be ready and very healthy going into that game, hopefully in Game 5. And then, yes, you get that win. You're 3-1. At that point in Game 5, hopefully you're 4-1. You're 3-2, no worse. And you're feeling good going into a really tough end of September and a really tough October.
Well, and you brought up something that I think is going to help this team. I am extremely high on what I think this offense can do this year. I love the weapons that BYU has on offense. I think it is an extremely well-balanced offense. I expect a big year from Kedon Slovis. But what you touched on, I think there's no way that the defense isn't better this year. And I think that goes a long way in helping the situation overall. So I think the moves that were made in the offseason from the coaching staff and schematically, and we'll get into that in a little bit more in a second. But I think that the upgrades on defense will certainly help what I think is going to be a very prolific offense.
I was hoping that the defense would upgrade in some of its talent more than it did, frankly. Like, I still think there's a couple defensive linemen that are needed in the future. BYU's got talent across the board, but I'm talking about, like, adding depth, adding competition to those groups. Linebackers, I really like the starters. There's some really good young talent behind them. Secondary right now, cornerback feeling good. Safety is obviously a concern with Micah Harper there. Do you have the depth to sustain another injury very quickly? Like, it feels a little thin in terms of experience there. But Jay Hill is going to do his best to have these guys ready. So let's go.
All right, so we talked about Kedon Slovis, and I think it probably goes without saying that the most important player for BYU this upcoming season is Kedon Slovis. So besides the quarterback Slovis, who's the most valuable BYU football player or coach entering this season? Who's most valuable for the Cougars outside of Slovis?
Yeah, it's easy to say the quarterback, so we eliminate him,
yes.
Right? It feels like Jay Hill. It feels like Jay Hill in this defense, if they, with a tougher schedule, because if they put up similar numbers against this schedule that they did last year, well, it's against tougher competition, so you sort of grade it a little differently. Can BYU improve on those numbers and against a tougher schedule? We think the answer is yes. We think that scheme alone will help the BYU defense, not to mention bringing in a few newcomers who will really help in Isaiah Banya, Jackson Cravens, AJ Vongpacha, Eddie Heckard, notably, on that defense. So I would say Jay Hill's the guy. Aiden Robbins sort of sticks out as well. Like, Aaron Roderick sustaining what he's been doing is up there. You could say Kalani, I suppose. But Jay Hill sticks out as the number one reason.
I agree with you 100%. It's Jay Hill. And the biggest changes needed to come on the defensive side. And everything that we have seen so far and that we have heard have all talked about not just the schematic changes, and that stuff will be obvious because you'll be able to see that play out on the field.
Yes.
But it's the overall attitude, it's the overall intensity that the players are all talking about, that Coach Hill is talking about, that he sees out on the field. That alone, I think, is going to be a game changer for BYU on that side of the ball. Then you talk about what you brought up in terms of the guys that are coming into the program, whether it's guys coming off of missions. You mentioned some of the transfer portal guys that are coming in that will play big roles. Hopefully, having your starters stay healthy, and you talked about the linebackers, and that was a position that got hit hard last year with injuries is the linebacker position. So being able to keep guys like Max Tooley and Ben Bywater and others healthy throughout the whole season is going to be huge. But I think it really does come down to Jay Hill and how quickly he can turn around the defense. And I think you brought up Aiden Robbins. If I'm going a player, it's probably where I go as well.
I think so too.
I think from a player standpoint, outside of Kedon, what Robbins can do with his physicality and his ability to run the ball, especially with the offensive line that we think BYU rebounded extremely well with after losing some pretty important guys.
Totally.
The offensive line is going to be a beast. So I think it's Jay Hill. And if I had to go for a player, probably Robbins.
The surprise of the offseason to me was how well BYU upgraded that offensive line. I'm not shocked that BYU has a very good quarterback and a good running back. BYU has always had these. Like, rarely do we walk into a season and go, I don't know about that position. We feel confident in that position almost every year. Linebackers and tight ends, this is a place that can recruit that position very, very well. Brady Papinga called them the mountain men types. BYU can recruit that type of guy. To me, in the future, after this year, it's address D-line, obviously address safety given a notable injury there and so on. But, hey, man, we're only how many days away from watching these guys?
Countdown to the Bearcats.
9 days away. Only single digits.
Single digits.
Let's